Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the NOVAtime Technology and Landiger Barron Law Group California Mandatory Sick Leave webinar. We will get started in just a few minutes as more people join on. You should be able to see a title screen right now, and we'll get going in probably about 3 or 4 minutes. Thank you. Good morning, everybody, and welcome. We are going to get started in just a few minutes. Thank you. Hi, everybody. Good morning. Welcome to the NOVAtime Technology Landiger Barron Law Group California Mandatory Sick Leave webinar. We're going to get started right now, and you should be able to see my screen here. My name is Scott Rose, and I'm with NOVAtime Technology. This is pretty exciting legislation that's been passed in California, and it's causing quite a bit of uproar. We've done a few of these webinars over the last couple of months. And some key dates in 2015, if you have not had a poster visibly displayed for employee viewing in the workplace, you should have had it posted by January 1st of this year, and if you haven't done it so far, you're in trouble. As of July 8th, you should have provided a notice to employees and existing employees and written documentation of paid sick leave information. So if you haven't done that yet, you're in trouble. And as of July 1st, if you haven't started the accruals, you're going to have some issues. So we're here to talk about that. We've got the Landiger Barron Law Firm who's going to be doing the main presentation today, Marie Davis. And so let's get going right now. We've got several hundred people on the call, and I see that we've got organizations that are based in California, but then there's a lot of, and maybe even the majority of the organizations are not located in California, which is interesting. They have employees or offices or locations in California, so that's kind of a cool thing. This is really generating some interest. So a couple of logistics. This webinar is being recorded, and what we're going to be doing, because of the large number of people on the call, we're muting everybody's lines. However, we will make the chat box over to the right of the screen available for questions, and we welcome questions if they're for NOVAtime or the attorneys. We welcome the questions, and what we're going to do is we've got some time at the end to answer those questions. So we're not going to post your name or your organization, and there's no question that is too ridiculous to ask. So please ask away. We're all here to learn more about what's happening in this with this situation. So what we'll do at the end of the webinar today, we'll follow up with an email to everybody that's attended. They'll have links to the website, to the presentations, to the recording, and then on September 1st, we'll have the questions and answers all posted, and you'll have the ability to take a look at those. So without further ado, I'm going to get going here. NOVAtime Technology is one of the sponsors of the event today. We're a workforce management time and attendance company based out of California, and along with the systems that we sell, we also provide compliance services. So this is just one of the services that we provide to our prospects and customers. We've got a pretty large list of customers that utilize our system. The majority of them are for time and attendance, but along with time and attendance is being compliant in the rules and regulations and the wage and hour issues, and the meal premiums and breaks and things are one of those, but California Sick Paid is another one of those. So these are all things that we're providing to our customer base. NOVAtime Technology provides time and attendance systems either on an on-premise or a cloud-based basis, and it's accessible without the installation of any software on a standard web browser. So anybody can have access to it wherever they happen to be throughout the world. So it's a consistent delivery model for the employer and the employee as well. We are proud to provide the largest collection of data collection devices in the industry for people that are doing it via the web or mobile applications or via time clocks. And the time clocks these days are very, very serious devices that allow people that speak English in multiple languages to view and use the device, and then keeping them compliant with the rules that you set up. And NOVAtime assists you with those rules as new things change throughout North America and the world with rules and regulations for wage and hour issues. We provide emails on a monthly basis to our customers, letting them know what is new, what enhancements have been made to our system to make sure that you're compliant, and then the ability to turn those enhancements on and get training and education on the new rules and regulations. So a lot is going on in this industry, very, very competitive, and it's a good thing. We're here to protect you, the employer. As an example of some of the things that we're dealing with, meal and break periods are super important, and I think everybody knows that. And this is an example of what you would see at the clock if you clocked out at 8:30 with the expectation from the organization that you'd be taking a 30-minute break, and you're attempting to clock back in at 8:47. That's not quite 30 minutes. So the clock is basically locking you out, and the system would do this as well, and lock you out and not allow you to come back to work for 30 minutes. So this is just an example of some of the types of things that a system, not just NOVAtime, but other systems that are out there can provide. Now, some of the other things that are also important is being able to punch in and work and get credit for the hours that are worked, but also asking your employees questions. Have they had their meals and breaks? Have they left the job injury-free today? And if they answer yes or no, then certain things happen, such as if I have an injury and I say that I've got an injury, that my supervisor is notified. These are just the types of things that the systems can provide to you as well. Reporting, I know one of the requirements on our side, the system side, is that we will be able to provide California Sick Pay records showing how many hours have been earned and used for the last 3 years, and providing the reports to you with that kind of data is important. So this is an example of the different type of reports and things that we provide. Scheduling your employees, taking overtime and leave requests and things into consideration, but allowing you, the employer, to be able to schedule and fulfill what you need to do for base compliance requirements is one of the things that we do with an advanced scheduling manager, where the employer puts minimum resource requirements into the system, taking into consideration compliance requirements and baselines to get the job done based on demand. And then looking at the employees, preferences and availability for work, leave requests. Maybe you've got unions or collective bargaining agreements and you need rankings and priorities and certifications and qualifications and things like that, and taking into consideration overtime. The system will automatically create a schedule for you and generate it. But again, when you automate too much, it may not be a good thing. And so you've got to take into consideration manual changes and employee shift trades and bidding and giveaways and pickups and things. So we're going to let your employees know, and if you have this module in the system, via text or email or telephone, hey, there's an open slot open for a registered nurse or a firefighter or a policeman or a cashier, and if you want to use it, you can reply back, and then your final schedule is generated. So a lot of things systems do these days to make sure that you're keeping track and paying everybody consistently, that the supervisors are doing the jobs that they should be doing, that you as an employer are doing the things that you should be doing to be compliant, not have to call the law firm for litigation and advice. So this is a view of our manager dashboard, giving you the ability to go in and click on real time, the elapsed time people have worked in the day, or if there's exceptions, or vacation, or, like the topic today, sick requests. And you can click on these links and get access to those and work within the rules and regulations that you've set up as a company and deal with those kinds of things. Notifications, here's requests. This is some requests from an employee for vacation time which has been declined, vacation time that's been approved. These are the kinds of things that the system can automate for you so that you don't forget things, so you keep track of these administrative duties and get to your job and to your work. So just kinds of things that we do as a company and as a system. Some other notifications here. Somebody is supposed to start at work at 6 a.m. Scott Rose, he's a no-show today. And the ability to use a system like NOVAtime to say, uh-oh, we're not fully staffed, we need to bring somebody else on board. And again, different things the systems can do. So without further ado, I'm going to kind of just go through a couple more screenshots here, showing you some of the notifications and things that we do. Here is my contact information. If anybody needs to get a hold of me, and we'll provide this at the end as well. But as I hand things over to Marie, and Marie, I'm going to hand you the presentation right now so you can get going. I want to tell you a little bit about Marie before she gets going with her presentation. Marie is an attorney with the law firm Landiger Barron Law Group based out of Southern California, and they're part of the NOVAtime Compliance Services Group. Prior to attending law school, Marie Davis worked for some nonprofit organizations in California. One specifically was in Santa Barbara County, helping build low-income housing. Marie learned firsthand some of the struggles facing small businesses, consequently committed herself to helping these organizations overcome their obstacles, particularly in the employment area. She joined the Landiger Barron law firm partly due to its philosophy that education is the key to preventing lawsuits in the future. Some of the things that she and the firm work with on a daily basis, their practice areas are helping companies remain union-free, dealing with complex wage and hour class actions, pre-termination counseling, drafting and negotiating employment agreements, workplace violence, litigation defense of employment-related claims, confidentiality agreements. And the entire firm is bilingual with lots of ability to present in multiple languages, the attorneys and the staff as well. So Marie, without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to you to present. I can see your screen and it looks fantastic. Go ahead.
Thank you, Scott, and good morning, everyone. So the California mandatory sick leave policy has been in effect for exactly 50 days, and we still get calls, countless calls on a daily basis from our clients regarding how to implement it, how to enforce it, and how to keep up with all the amendments, because as I'll talk about at the end of the presentation, it went into effect July 1 and it was amended July 13. And it was amended poorly, but like I said, we'll talk about that at the end. So let's get going. What is the basics of the new sick leave law? Well, beginning July 1, all California employers must provide a paid sick leave benefit to all employees. All employees means all employees, seasonal employees, part-time employees, full-time employees, temporary employees, day players, anything. All employees are entitled to the benefit. But as we'll talk about in more detail, there are specific ways that they earn the benefit. The only exception are union employers, in-home service providers that specifically contract with the state pursuant to IHSS, and airline cabin and flight deck crews. So if you don't fit into one of those three categories, you have to provide the benefit. Who benefits and how much? All employees who work at least 30 calendar days within a year are entitled to the benefit. And then you get to choose as the employer, how are you going to provide the benefit? We're going to do the accrual system based on hours, or are you going to front load? If you choose the accrual system, as this slide shows, all of your employees must accrue 1 hour of sick leave for every 30 hours worked. And NOVAtime can help you out with this. You want to make sure that you are really taking careful, adequate, accurate accounting of those hours. So it's 1 hour for every 30 hours worked. All unused days must be carried over from year to year. This is if you're using the accrual system. However, you can cap accrual at 48 hours. Is there any flexibility in the law? Yes, and this is one of the things that makes the law quite confusing. You can cap accrual at 48 hours or 6 days. But at the same time, you can tell your employees you can only use 3 days or 24 hours a year. And yes, it doesn't make any sense, but you can, if you're using the accrual method, you can say, look, you can have up to 6 days in your bank, but we're only going to let you use 3 days per year. If you front load, which is the other option, that means that you're giving all of your employees 3 days or 24 hours upon their very first day of employment, basically saying, welcome to the company, here are 3 sick days put into your sick bank, but you're not allowed to use it until you have worked at least 30 calendar days for us and until you have completed your 90th day of employment, but here they are, welcome to the company. If you choose that method, you can do it, use it or lose it. So once they've exhausted those 3 days or 24 hours in a year, it's over. You don't have to do a carryover. So there's a lot of math in this new law. I'd like to keep it a little bit simple by using the 1-30-90 rule, and I'll cover it in more detail. But all employees begin to accrue sick leave on their very first day of employment. They're entitled to the benefit once they've worked 30 calendar days. And then you can make them wait until their 90th day of employment in order to start taking it. So if you think about that, 1-30-90, it might be helpful. There are new rules as far as communicating the law. Everyone who has access to the California Chamber of Commerce can get your new posters. On that poster, it spells out the requirements of the law, and you as the employer should fill in or post what method you have decided to use, either the 1 hour for every 30 or the front load method. And that's up to you. Now, aside from posting a poster, you are also required under Labor Code Section 2810.5 to provide a new hire form to all new hourly employees. This is as of January 1, 2015. And on that form, as I like to call it, the How Do You Sue Me form, in addition to filling out your legal address and the person agent for service of process and your workers' compensation information and all that, you also have to list their right to take sick leave and what method you have chosen, either the accrual method or the front load method. And the penalties for not posting it are small, but I would still recommend that you have those posters in place. So whose illness qualifies? Basically everyone except nieces, nephews, aunts, uncles, cousins, and pets. However, if you are working in Northern California San Francisco, I believe it was San Francisco, just passed a more tight, stringent sick leave policy where employees can take time off to care for their sick service pets, which is hopefully not going to expand statewide. But for now, pretty much everyone's illness qualifies. The employee's illness, their child. When I say no matter how the child got there, I mean it could be foster, adopted, stepchild, anything like that. Your spouse or your registered domestic partner, grandparents, in-laws, anyone, basically everybody except nieces, nephews, aunts, uncles, and cousins. And what reasons qualify for sick leave? Well, pretty much everything. Person and employee is entitled to take sick leave for the diagnosis, care, treatment of a disease, or for preventative care such as, dental checkups or physical checkups, anything like that. Also, back on January 1 of 2014, the law in California was that all employers have to provide unpaid time off for victims of domestic violence, sexual assault, or stalking. Well, January 1, 2015, the legislature wrote into the sick leave law that now employees can use their sick time to take time off if they're a victim of domestic violence, sexual assault, or stalking. And we all know, and this is one of our top questions, we know that employees are going to take advantage of this law. It's California. They're going to take sick leave in the winter to go skiing, and they're going to take sick leave in the summer to go surfing. And we know that's true. All I can say is the requirements of the law are there. You have to provide sick leave. You have to provide paid time for them to take the time off. And unless you know for certain that they're lying to you, which could require a write-up, and we can talk about that in more detail if you have a specific question. But our recommendation is just let them take it, because they're going to take it, they're entitled to it, and if they use it up and then they get sick later in the year and they're genuinely sick, like they have a cold or a flu or something like that, they're just not going to get paid for the time. But pretty much every employee is going to take advantage of this law and make sure that they get their 3 days or 24 hours off. It's just the way it is. Okay, here's my 130-90 rule explained a little bit clearer. When can employees use their paid sick leave? Okay, so as I said, accrual begins on their very first day of employment. But they're not entitled to the benefit until they work 30 calendar days in a year. So if you have a really part-time employee, for example, or a seasonal employee, it is quite possible that that employee in a 1-year period of time will only work 28 days. So that means they're never going to be entitled to take sick leave. However, you still, as the employer, have to keep accurate records of their amount of sick leave that they have accrued from that first day. So if they've worked 150 hours in those 28 days, then they're still entitled to the sick leave that they've accrued on their books, but they're never going to be allowed to take it. So again, it's a headache, it's a nightmare, poorly written law, but that's what you have to do. So as soon as an employee has actually worked 30 days, they're entitled to the benefit, but then you are allowed to make them wait till their 90th day of employment to start taking it. Now the 90th day of employment is calculated from their date of hire. So it's two separate things. The 30-day rule is actual days worked, 30 days that they come into the office and they put time in. The 90th day rule is calculated from the date of hire. So if you're hired January 1, your 90th day of employment is like March 31st. So there's that distinction. As I said, employers can limit use to 3 days or 24 hours per year, and if you use the accrual method, you have to allow carryover and a cap of up to 6 days. When do employees get paid for sick leave? Well, this is probably self-explanatory. All employees must get paid in the same paycheck immediately following their absence. So it's if they took vacation leave or personal time or any other thing. Thankfully, as of right now, there is no requirement that you as the employer pay out any type of unused time. And when an employee leaves the job, you do not have to pay it out. It is not like vacation. However, if you have a PTO policy, and we can talk about that in a minute, if you have a PTO policy that complies with this sick leave law, meaning you at least provide 3 days of sick time that employees can use for any reason, including being sick, a PTO policy is treated like vacation in California. So any unused PTO must be paid out upon termination. But if you have a separate sick leave benefit, that separate sick leave does not have to be paid out. It's not treated like vacation. And employers are allowed to require in their policies that employees tell them in advance if the leave is foreseeable, such as if you have to take your kids to a doctor's appointment or if you have a dental appointment to get to. You are allowed to have that in your policy. You are also allowed to require that all employees use a minimum of 2 hours at a time. So even if the employee says, you know what, the dentist is right down the street, I'll be back in 30 minutes, I just have to do a quick checkup, you can still say that's fine, but you are going to lose 2 hours out of your sick leave bank once you take that appointment. Now, the law is silent on whether or not an employer can ask for a doctor's note. However, our policy has always been, long before this law was even drafted, you don't want to ask your employee for a doctor's note until they're going to be absent for 3 days, meaning they call in sick day 1, they call in sick day 2, they call in sick day 3, then you're allowed to say, safely, say, you know what, you're going to need a doctor's note before you can return back to work, meaning day 4, day 5, however long it is that they're going to be out. The reason for this, well, there's a couple of reasons. Number one, we don't want employers to be accused of harassing or discriminating or mistreating their employees for taking advantage of this new sick leave law, which, as I said, we know they will, because sometimes people really do get sick. I mean, you can imagine waking up and you have a stomach flu, or you wake up in the middle of the night and you just suddenly get hit with a bad cold, whatever it is. You need to take a sick day. Well, if you call in sick and your employer says you need to go get a doctor's note, then you're going to have to get out of your sick bed, go wait in line at the doctor's office to get a note that says, yes, you're sick and you should be back in bed. They're probably going to be out for another day, when if you would have just let them alone for 1 day, they'll be back to work on day 2. So we don't want you to do that. The other thing is, imagine if it's their kid. I just would not want to get employers in trouble by forcing a parent to get a sick child out of bed and drag them down to the doctor if it's just a minor thing that can, resolve itself in a day or 2. So 3 days, that is when we think it is safe to ask for a doctor's note. I wouldn't do it any earlier than that. You also are not allowed to delve into the reasons why someone is sick. You can't ask, what do you have? What's the doctor's appointment for? What type of doctor you're going to see? All of those questions are off limits. If you ask any type of questions related to an employee's health condition, you can be walking yourself into a disability discrimination lawsuit, which is a whole nother discussion, but it's not something that you want to do. The other thing that employers cannot do is they cannot make an employee find their own replacement workers. So even if you have a situation where you work in a restaurant and you have a certain number of waiters or waitresses set for that shift, and somebody calls in 15 minutes before their shift and says, you know what, I can't come in, I'm sick, you're the one that has to find a replacement. A sick leave must be reported, as I said, on every paycheck. And as you can see here, you want to have the opening hours, the amount of sick leave, especially if you've front-loaded, that they have available, and then you want to how much more they've accrued in that time frame. If you haven't been using the front load and they're doing the accrual, and then how much they've used. And this is written into the law, but there's also another labor code section. It's labor code section 226, which requires all of this information to be on a paycheck stub, and the penalties under 226 are for basically $4,000 an employee, depending on the number of pay periods that you failed to include the information. So we strongly want to advise that you make sure that their sick leave is reported on their paycheck stubs. Talk to your payroll companies. I've had clients call me recently in the last 50 days saying, my payroll company told me I don't have to put it on the paycheck stub because the law doesn't say that. Well, it does. So first of all, they're incorrect about that. But the law does give employers a way out. They say if you do not want to include it on the paycheck stub, you can do this, which to me sounds like the worst option. You can provide each and every employee with a written copy of how much sick leave they've accrued and used, along with their paycheck on the day that the paycheck arrives. So basically you'd be saying, here's your paycheck, and inside your paycheck envelope there's another sheet of paper that says this is how much sick leave you have. So yes, the law gives you a way out, which sounds to me like a much bigger headache than just putting the information on the paycheck stub to begin with. And we're concerned about Labor Code Section 226, so it would just be safer all around to have that information included. We'll talk about the amendments a little bit later, but this one rule has changed slightly. But unfortunately, the law as it's written discriminates. It discriminates. It treats part-time workers better than it treats full-time workers, and it treats outside sales commissioned employees better than everyone, because if an employee earns different hourly rates and or commissions, including straight commissions, which we all know there's a lot of companies that employees just earn straight commissions. The way you have to calculate their rate of pay for sick leave is by averaging their rate of pay over the previous 90 days. And so, you know, understandably, that can be significantly high in the case of commission-only employees, but for the time being, even with the amendments, that's the law. So if you earn different rates of pay, you must include the commissions into your calculation of how much to pay them for their day rate if they take time off for sick leave. Salaried employees, of course, also must have their sick leave included on their paycheck stub. Salaried employees earn roughly 5.3 hours per month if you're using the accrual method, because you have to assume that they work a 40-hour work week. If you have an unlimited time off policy, you still must report accrual and use. Now that has been amended so that if you have an unlimited time off policy, you can actually just write unlimited on the paycheck stub, but I'm not sure of how many employers actually offer an unlimited time off. So I don't know if that's going to help too many people. But as I said earlier, if you have an existing PTO policy, that is okay, perfectly fine if you have a compliant PTO policy, so long as it specifies that employees can use the time off for sick, and so long as the accrual rate is at least 1 hour for every 30 hours worked, or you front load the time, at least 24 hours. Okay, so the law requires you to keep good records, which is a smart thing to do anyway, just in case the labor commissioner comes calling or a plaintiff's attorney happens to file a lawsuit. But yeah, you have to keep good records. You want to keep all wage and hour records and sick pay and vacation usage records for at least 3 years. You must allow the labor commissioner access to come in and review those records, but please call an attorney first to make sure that we can calculate your exposure ahead of time and come in and make sure that they're asking the right questions and that you're not answering the wrong questions. And if you don't keep adequate records, unfortunately in the state of California, when it comes to wage records, the employer is the one that's required to keep it. And so if you don't have those records, you're presumed to owe the maximum. And unfortunately, I have been in front of the Labor Commissioner on more than one occasion where an employee has come in and said, you know what, I worked 70 hours a week for this person. And I'm sitting there saying, Your Honor, that's impossible. You know, the building isn't even open 70 hours. But I need to have some sort of secondary evidence in order to disprove what the employee is saying. And usually, because the Labor Commissioner really is on the side of the employee, they'll say, you know, the onus is on the employer. If the employer doesn't have adequate pay records, then I'm going to just go ahead and believe whatever it is that the employee says. So it's important to keep the records, not just for this law, but for the big picture, protecting yourself for wage and hour lawsuits. The law also specifically says it's not okay for employers to retaliate against employees for using sick leave. Now, what does that mean? You cannot count sick day usage against the employee in any manner because these are now considered legally protected days off. Essentially what that means is nothing bad can happen to an employee within 30 days of them taking sick leave. So this happens a lot too. I see this happen all the time. You're going to have a situation where you have an employee that you really wanted to get rid of, or at the very least write up, or have some sort of final counseling session with them. They're going to see the writing on the wall, and they're going to call out sick to avoid the meeting, to avoid getting fired, to avoid the discipline, to avoid whatever it is. So you're going to let them take the sick leave. And then as soon as they get back, your urge is going to be, okay, now we're going to follow up with that disciplinary action. Well, I want to caution you not to do that. Certainly call your labor attorney first, but wait at least a month and keep good records and make sure that you're documenting all the times that they screw up. But if you just automatically take some sort of adverse action against them because they took, well, not because, if you take adverse action against them within a week or 2 weeks or even 3 weeks of when they've returned from a sick leave, they're going to have a claim. It's a very defensible claim, certainly, because you're going to have your documentation showing that you were going to fire this guy the day before he took sick leave anyway, but it's still a claim. And, you know, as we always say, employment lawyers, we can't totally protect you from a lawsuit. All we can do is defend you once you do get hit with one, but we can also advise you how best to play out a scenario so that you don't get sued. So in this case, no retaliation. They're legally protected days off. Taking any adverse action against an employee within 30 days of talking about sick leave, requesting sick leave, taking sick leave, questioning sick leave, anything is a bad idea. Sorry, that was my next slide. Yeah, employer can be presumed guilty of unlawful retaliation if bad things happen to the employee within 30 days. What's at stake for failing to comply with the rules? Well, obviously the actual amount of sick pay owed to the employee for failing to properly pay them or properly follow the accrual system. That's certainly something to consider. There's also included in the law a 3 times that amount penalty, up to $4,000. So it's not just the actual amount of sick pay that wasn't given to the employee that can be levied against the employer, but also a penalty on top of that, a you shouldn't have done that in the first place penalty, which is 3 times that amount, up to $4,000. If you take any adverse action against them, the labor commissioner can order reinstatement and or back pay. The Labor Code 226 penalty that I already referred to is $4,000 max per employee. And of course, you want to be careful of the lawsuit for wrongful termination or disability discrimination or any other adverse action that you took against the employee for using their sick leave. Now, lawsuits, civil lawsuits for wrongful termination, disability discrimination, those can be extremely costly. And the best way to protect yourself from from one of those, aside from not taking any adverse action in the first place, is to make sure you all have EPLI insurance. That's Employment Practices Liability Insurance. That insurance policy pays for not just your defense costs, but also any settlement costs or any judgment costs associated with a civil lawsuit for these types of employment acts. It will not protect you from a wage and hour lawsuit, but that's okay. It's still something that I want everybody listening to this webinar to make sure they have. So talk to your brokers at the conclusion of the webinar and make sure that you have that. The wage and hour issues that are not covered by EPLI is sometimes that they write riders, which will at least pay for your defense costs, but it won't pay for any settlement or liability for wage and hour. So again, you want to make sure you keep really good records and you make sure that the accrual is accurate or the front load is accurate so that you can protect yourself from that. Okay, so now we're going to talk about some of our top questions, and I hope you guys are writing down your questions, because at the conclusion of this, I want to spend as much time as possible answering all of your questions because I know that you have a ton. So here are some of the top ones. How is that 30-day requirement calculated? Well, that depends on your year, but at the very minimum, every employee who works 30 calendar days beginning on July 1, 2015 through June 30, 2016 is entitled to sick leave. Now, some people have changed their years, which is okay. You can either do a July 1 to June 30, you can do a January 1 to December 31, or you can do your employee's anniversary date. It really is up to you, whatever you choose. But any employee who works 30 calendar days within that year, whichever year you have selected, those are the employees that are entitled to sick leave. The next question is always, well, what constitutes a day? A day constitutes a day. So even if an employee literally only comes into work for 5 minutes, that counts as a day for purposes of the law. Now, he's only worked 5 minutes, so he's not going to accrue any sick leave, but he's going to accrue 5 minutes towards 30 hours, where he will eventually accrue 1 hour of sick leave. But it still counts as a day. So hopefully that's clear, but I can clarify later. How is the 90th day of employment calculated? Well, as I said there, this is another great example. The 90th day is calculated from their hire date. So someone hired on July 1, 2015, their 90th day of employment is September 28, 2015, regardless of actual calendar days worked. So everybody's probationary 90-day period is essentially the same thing. It's your first 90 days of employment. But most people only work 5 days a week, and they don't work on the weekends. So the 90th day of employment is not actual days worked. It's just time that you've been technically employed. And here is the big one. This is the one that I think the law got it wrong, but how is the 3-day, 24-hour use rule calculated? Okay, so the law just took effect 50 days ago, so there haven't been any court cases filed yet to test the law. So there haven't been any judicial decisions handed down yet to clarify the law, and that's how it works. First, we have a really poorly written law that the legislature implements with some even more poorly written amendments, and then somebody gets sued, and then there's a lawsuit, and then the court can come in and say, you know what, this is what the law should legally mean. Well, the DLSE, which refers to the Department of Labor Standards Enforcement, they have young attorneys that have reviewed the law and have taken certain positions that unfortunately you as the employer must follow until a judge rules differently. But the DLSE has interpreted the law so incorrectly, in my opinion, it's absurd, because right out of their mouth, they're literally saying that part-time employees are entitled to more of a benefit than full-time employees, which doesn't make any sense. So anyway, according to the DLSE, employers can limit the use of sick leave to 3 days or 24 hours per year. But the DLSC has interpreted this as whatever amount benefits the employees most. So for example, if you have an employee who only works 4-hour shifts, then they are still entitled to take 24 hours of leave per year, even though that means it's 6 working days. But that is the way it is right now. So if you have your regular full-time employee that works 8-hour shifts, they're only getting 3 days, but the part-time employee down the hall gets 24 hours or 6 days. If an employee works 10-hour shifts or 12-hour shifts, on the flip side, then he or she, according to the DLSC, can take 30 hours of sick leave, even though it's more than 24, because that's their 3-day period. So it's 3 days or 24 hours, whichever benefits the employee most. And again, that's got to change because it doesn't make any sense, but it's the way it is now. Oh, amendments, yes. So I'm sorry, July 13th, 2015, just 13 days after the law went into effect, the legislature amended the law in the following manner. So good news, everyone. The 30-day rule was clarified to require that employees are only entitled to sick leave if they work for the same employer for 30 days, which I was pretty sure everybody listening to this call knew that it went without saying that you only have to provide sick leave to your own employees who work for you for 30 days. But the legislature was kind enough to clarify that. Okay, the accrual method has also been expanded to allow for one more option, but it is a trap, and I'm going to tell you why it's a trap, and I don't want you to do it. I want you to choose one of the first 2 options. So you have 1 hour for every 30 hours worked, which, like I said, accounting nightmare, accounting headache, but it might be less expensive if you have a lot of part-time workers rather than using the front load method. Just make sure you got it right. That's all I'm going to say about that. 24 hours or 3 days up front. I already went over that. Or any other accrual method the employer chooses. So whatever you want to do, any other method you want, so long as the method is consistent, regular, and provides all employees with at least 24 hours of sick leave or PTO by the 120th day of employment. So if that makes sense to you, you can go ahead and do that. But it's a trap because think about it for a moment. If you have an employee that comes to work 2 days a week, every week, by the time he's hit his 120th day of employment, so that's 4 months into work, he hasn't worked nearly enough actual days or hours. You're going to have to then say, oh, by the way, you haven't reached 24 hours, but now I have to give it to you. Because under this law, by the time he's hit 120 days of employment, regardless of actual hours worked or days worked, you have to make sure that he's provided with 24 hours of sick pay. So I just think there's a whole host of traps involved in that, and it doesn't make any sense. I'm not sure at all what they meant by that, but any other accrual method, so long as all employees, that says all employees, means all employees, get 24 hours of sick leave by their 120th day of employment. And as we know, that's calculated by date of hire, not actual days worked. So I would really strongly advise that you choose one of the first 2 options. Or if you have a third option in mind, pick up the phone, call me, call your other attorney, just so that we can evaluate it and we can make sure that you're not going to fall into any of loopholes or unexpected traps. Another amendment, safe harbor provision for employers with existing sick leave or PTO policies in place prior to January 1, not July 1, but January 1, 2015. So all employers may keep these policies in place so long as all employees receive no less than 1 day of sick leave within 3 months, within the first 3 months of each year of employment. And all employees can accrue 3 days or 24 hours within 9 months of each year of employment. So again, we have to go back and evaluate your existing policies that were in place prior to January 1 to make sure that they are in compliance with this. and so long as your employees are earning at least 24 hours within 9 months. If you change your sick leave policy that was in existence, then you have to now comply with the current law. And the safe harbor provision only protects employers from the accrual requirements. All the other facets of the law, such as broad definition of family member and broad definition of the reasons why you can use sick leave, those are all still applicable. So I see it as another trap. I don't think these amendments helped one little bit, and they just made a poorly written law more poorly written and more difficult to understand. But there you have it. Oh, I think I mentioned this earlier. Employers who have an unlimited sick leave policy can indicate unlimited on an employee's paycheck. So I have yet to meet a client who has an unlimited sick leave policy. I'm really surprised that those even exist. But if you have an unlimited paid time off policy, you go ahead and just put unlimited. Now, this is probably the only amendment that might help employers, and that is the possible ways of calculating sick leave pay for individuals who earn those commissions and an hourly rate, especially those outside sales employees that we talked about earlier. So you have the 90-day method that we already talked about. You calculate the daily rate of pay based on how much the employee earned over the last 90 days, and that includes commissions. Or you can use the work week method. So this really might be more beneficial. Employers may calculate the sick pay rates by taking the total compensation earned during the last work week, the work week that the sick leave was taken, and dividing it by the total hours worked during the work week, regardless of overtime and regardless of the sick leave hours that were taken. And that's how you would calculate the rate of pay. So I actually think that might be a little bit helpful for employers of employees who earn commission. And then this is my favorite. My favorite amendment, almost as much as the first one that says, you know, good news, you only have to provide sick leave to your own employees that work for just you for 30 days. This is my favorite. Sick leave reinstatement provision. That's the one where if you have any employee that leaves your employment and then comes back to work for you within 12 months, you have to reinstate any unused but accrued sick leave is reinstated to those employees. So basically, let's say you have a seasonal employee, and by the time the season's over, he's accrued 20 hours of sick leave, but he hasn't used any. And then he comes back to work for you 10 months later when the season starts again. He has to be reinstated with those 20 hours that he did not use before he left. Okay, so they've amended that. I mean, it's still in effect, but they amended it to give you an out. So the sick leave reinstatement provision was clarified to relieve employers of the duty to reinstate the accrued sick leave for employees who return to work within 1 year. If the employer pays out any accrued sick leave upon the employee's separation, then there is no requirement to reinstate the employee's unused sick leave. It's just funny to me. I'm laughing because what this means is that if you pay the employee for the sick leave that he didn't use, then guess what? You don't have to reinstate it. I mean, it's just another one of those things it's a no-brainer. Obviously, if you pay it out, it doesn't exist anymore, so there would be nothing to reinstate. But that is one of the most recent amendments. So I think that it's going to be amended again and again, and I know that the lawsuits are going to be coming, especially because of the part-time employees being treated better than full-time employees and what that means. But we are here to help, and as there are updates, we will host additional webinars, and I'm always here to answer questions via phone, via email. I know that there were a lot of questions during the presentation, and I'm going to take some time right now to answer those questions. Scott's going to read them to me, and I'm going to respond. But I will also have written answers provided to you in a couple of weeks. When you go to the NOVAtime website, you'll see a download of today's presentation. I believe you'll be able to get an audio recording of it. I'm not sure. Scott can confirm that. And then I will have answers to all of the Q&A that I'm not able to answer today. So thank you very much. Scott?
Hey, great job, Marie. Yeah, this is the kind of legislation that the state of California, we've seen it time and time again, so it's just consistent with what they provide to us, just crystal clear at all costs. Okay, so a couple of questions have come in, quite a few actually. So one of the questions came across a little earlier in the presentation. The question is, my employees work from home. Do I need to provide and post a poster? My employees work from home. Do I need to provide a poster?
If there is some sort of main office, you're supposed to post in your main office break room area a copy of the wage order and that notice from the Cal Chamber. However, every employee, even those that work from home, have to receive the Labor Code Section 2810.5 notice to employees. You can actually just download that directly from the internet, or you can email me, I can send it to you. And when it comes to sick leave, I would recommend, just like having your sexual harassment, anti-discrimination, your meal and rest break policy, all of that should be written, submitted, and have some sort of an acknowledgement line where the employee can acknowledge that they read it, received it, and understood it. So if you don't have to send them a poster, but you definitely have to send them some sort of written notification that discusses sick leave so they know what they're entitled to.
Got it. Okay. Next question. Does this legislation apply for interns?
That is a good question, and you should probably call me or email me separately, because interns, well, it all depends. Interns, there's really no such thing as an unpaid intern in the state of California anymore. If you have an unpaid intern, it's supposed to be directly related to their education that they're receiving through an accredited college, and I always advise clients, go through the college. Don't try to do anything on your own. But an intern can't do anything for you that a regular employee could. So if you have an intern doing filing or making phone calls or reviewing papers or anything like that, you can't claim that they're an unpaid intern. You actually could end up owing those individuals minimum wage and meal and rest breaks and certainly sick leave. So I guess I would have to know, are you using unpaid interns? Because that's probably a problem. But if you're using unpaid interns correctly, then no, you wouldn't have to provide them with any type of benefit. But if they should be paid interns, and if they are an intern/employee, then yes, you have to provide them the benefit. But you might have to email me or talk to me about that separately.
Okay, good point. Let's see, next question. I missed what was said. Can we ask for a doctor's note if the employee takes the 3 sick days consecutively?
Yes, if they call, remember, they call in day 1, okay, see you tomorrow. They call in day 2, okay, see you tomorrow. They call in day 3 and they say, I'm still sick, then you are allowed to say on that 3rd day, okay, well, when you want to come back, if you're going to come back, you need to bring me a doctor's note.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Next question. We have the amount accrued and the current balance reported on check stubs. Does the opening balance have to be reported on the check stub? So again, the amount accrued and the current balance reported on check stubs. Does the opening balance have to be reported on the check stub?
No, I think what you're doing is correct, if I understand it. I know this is the only thing that makes it difficult with the webinar, but yeah, as long as it shows on a pay, so if I get my paycheck stub and it should say that I had 24 hours available, I accrued 6 hours during that pay period, and if I used any amount of time, like let's say I used 8, and then it should show what the balance is. So I guess I think from what I'm hearing, you're doing it right. As long as an employee can look at it and say, this is how much I had, this is how much I accrued, this is how much I used, this is how much I have left. That's what it needs to show.
Okay. Another question came across about, due to our system constraints, our time is maintained outside of the payroll. Can we email a document to our employees on payday as they also get their pay stubs online as well? So their system, the time and attendance is different than payroll.
Okay. I mean, if you cannot include sick leave accrual, use, and balance on the paycheck stubs, if that's impossible, then yeah, as long as you send some sort of written document along with the paycheck, then that's fine. But that's what's required, is that a person needs to be able to get their paycheck and at the same time click a link, open an envelope, do something that says this is how much sick leave you have available.
And these are the types of things that time and attendance systems provide and pass on directly to the payroll providers. So that's one of those things. You got to check it out. Look at NOVAtime. Okay, next question. Can you elaborate on what needs? Okay, we just went through that again. Needs to appear on the employee's check regarding sick pay. We did that. Next question. My temporary agency is also required to give their employees 3 paid sick days. If I hire the employee and they have already used their sick days through the agency, am I required to give them another 3 sick days? I have an idea.
If you, and again, if I'm understanding you correctly, but if you hire an individual from the temp agency, meaning your contract with the temp agency has completed, that employee is now your employee. Well, and by the way, you've been a joint employer of that employee all along. So your leasing company arrangements are getting much more dangerous too. It's just totally off topic, but July 1, 2015 automatically makes any employer who uses a leasing company jointly liable for wage and hour violations. So there's no more defense to that. But anyhow, so once that employee becomes your employee and that employee works for you for 30 calendar days, yes, you have to provide them with sick leave. So they can't, if you've terminated your contract with the leasing company, they become your employee. And so once they're your employee, the 30 days start calculating again, and you would have to provide them with the benefit.
Good question. I'm not sure where that came from, but that's a great question. I know it's very common. Yeah. Next question, if an employer provides 10 days of sick pay per year, is all the accrual protected or just 48 hours?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Yeah, if an employer provides 10 days of sick pay per year, is all the accrual protected or just 48 hours?
I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time understanding this.
I'm not sure
if you provide 10 days, I don't know if it's front load or accrual, that is more than what this law allows. So if you're providing 10 a year, you can limit the use to 3 days or 24 hours of sick leave. I'm sorry, I guess I'm really having a hard time understanding the question.
No, I think that makes sense too.
All of it would be protected. I'm sorry. Yeah, you know what? If you could email me this, I would be more than happy to answer it via email.
Yeah, you're giving them more than what is provided, but okay, yeah, we can circle back on that one. Yeah. Next question, I use the front load method of sick leave. When I hire an employee, does their first paycheck need to show the 24 hours of unused sick pay, or can I wait until they have completed the 90-day probationary period?
No, because they accrue it on their first day. So it should be on their paycheck stub on their first day. And once they've hit the 30 days of actual work and 90th day of employment, that's when they can start using it. But I would just leave it on there, because if you're front loading, then you're front loading, and what that means is you're front loading on the first day of employment, because that's what the law says, that employees accrue sick leave, the benefit, they accrue the time on their first day of employment, even if they don't ever hit the 30 days. But yeah.
Okay. Let's see, next question. What if the employer sick policy says that the first day of sick pay is not paid until you only get sick pay starting the second day? Does that make sense?
Oh, no, you can't. you cannot, if I'm understanding your question correctly, and of course, really truly please, and everyone feel free to email me if I'm getting it wrong. The law says that they are entitled to at least 24 hours per year, okay? The only limitation you as the employer can put on it is the 2-hour minimum use. That's it. So if they call out sick for 8 hours, or if their shift was 12 hours for that day, you are going to pay them for 12 hours or 8 hours. You can't tell them that we won't pay you until day 2. You have to pay them for the time that they use, when they use it, with the only limitation being the 2-hour use rule.
Okay, okay. Hey, Marie, can you go to the next slide? There's some people that are asking for your contact information.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah.
No, that's okay.
Why didn't I do that? There it is.
That's all right. That's all right. So let's see. Amendment states that if an employer pays out any sick pay upon separation, the sick time does not need to be reinstated. So if the employer pays out 1 hour on separation, does the remaining sick time have to be reinstated?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
I got a couple more questions. We currently have a PTO policy in place. Accruals do not show up on exempt employees' paycheck stubs. Do we need to load accruals to their check stubs?
Yes. The exempt employees are not exempt from the law. So whatever accrual method you're using for them, which is difficult for exempt employees because of the rate that they would accrue it. Like I said, I think it works out to 5.3 hours a month. So that would be like 2.85 hours per pay period. Or I mean, it's whatever that math is, it does need to show up on their paycheck stub.
Okay.
Oh, something I forgot to mention, I'm sorry. It is okay to discriminate against classes of employees as long as they're all performing the same job function. So if you want to treat your exempt employees better than your non-exempt employees, or your full-time employees better than your part-time employees, that's fine, just so long as everybody gets whatever the minimum requirements of the law are. So, if you have full-time employees that you want to be able to earn 5 days of sick leave per year, well, obviously that's just fine. But then your part-time employees, you only want them to have 3 days of sick leave, that's also fine, just as long as it's written into a clear policy. And I'm happy to review those policies, and I also have sample policies. If anybody wants to get in touch with me, I can send them your way.
Yeah, and Marie's contact information is on the screen right in front of you. So we got a couple more, and then I think we'll finish maybe a quarter after. But this is in regards to the sick leave reinstatement provision. If an employer had an existing sick pay policy prior to July 1st, 2015, and an employee had accrued more than 24 hours of accrual, the employee was rehired after July 1st, how much accrued sick pay should the employee be reimbursed?
You're saying, okay, so if an employee terminated before July 1 and your written policy prior to July 1 was not to have any kind of rollover, then then you've got nothing to worry about. If they're rehired after July 1, it's like a whole new ballgame when it comes to sick leave. They have to work 30 calendar days. Yeah, they have to work 30 calendar days to be entitled to the benefit, 90 days of employment to take it, and then whatever method you have used is what's going to apply to them.
So this is kind of along the same, this may be just worded differently, and I'll try to go slow, but if an employee separated employment prior to July 1st, are we still obligated to reinstate the sick balance, or does this only apply to those separated after July 1st?
Yeah, it's only going to apply. The law didn't go into effect until July 1. So anything that took place before July 1 can't be, it's basically one of those can't be used against you kind of things. You only have to comply with the law after July 1. So anything that if they separated prior to July 1, you don't have to worry about it.
Okay, so here's kind of like the display on the check stub. Do we have to show balance on the pay slip if an employee's balance is available to them 24/7? So it sounds to me like they've got web-based balances and things available to them. Do you still have to show it?
It just, I would do something like on payday, provide some sort of a link that says, hey, click here for sick leave balance. because the law doesn't say that if they have unlimited access, you don't have to report it on their paycheck stub. That wasn't one of the amendments. So I would just to be safe, I would want to make sure that if it's not on the paycheck stub, that they have a link on payday or a reminder email or something that says, hey, this is how much sick leave you have.
And a lot of systems can even do a message to the employee on the check stub as well. So maybe if that states something, that would probably maybe suffice.
Yeah, I mean, that's, you know, it's going to be, this is one of those minor infractions. It's just, in my experience with litigation and class actions, are that class actions are built on the back of technical violations. I mean, these plaintiffs' attorneys can earn so much money just because of Labor Code Section 226 violations. And, you know, it's risk assessment and what you want to do and how much it would cost to actually just go ahead and include it on the paycheck stub. But
okay,
I'm free to talk about it if you want.
Is there any reporting requirement from a payroll provider to the state of California?
No, it's all, the onus is always on the employer, not the payroll company.
Okay. Let's see, there's a few more coming in here. Would showing the ending balance on the previous stub be considered the same as showing the beginning balance on the current stub?
Yeah, yeah, you know, I don't think we need to get, I think that would be
Seems to be a big area of concern.
Yeah, no, I know. I mean, if the extra line is causing you a headache, as long as it shows use, I mean, it has to at least show the three, yeah, at least the three things. I would be fine with it showing accrual, use, and balance. But I would feel better if it showed the opening balance. But again, this is just because of those technical violations, and I've seen too many of them, so I'm more picky than most. But you know, I think that'd be fine. You can
You're the attorney. Yeah, you're the attorney.
Yeah.
Got a couple more. Got a couple more. If there was a pay rate change in the last 90 days from the time an employee uses their sick time, do we still have to calculate at what rate they will be paid at?
The 90-day and work week rule is only applicable to people that earn varying rates of pay. So if you received a different, a pay raise that went back in the 90 days, that's only gonna matter if that individual is regularly earning commissions, etc. Because, okay, so let's say, best example, I'm going to get a raise to $11 an hour. I was earning $10 an hour, but the beginning of my next pay period, I'm going to be earning $11 an hour. During that pay period, I go out sick. You are going to pay me for 8 hours at the rate of $11 an hour, or 6 hours, whatever my scheduled shift was for that day. So you're not going to have to go back 90 days. If I am an individual that earns $11 an hour, well, $10 an hour plus commissions, and then in the new pay period I went up to $11 an hour plus commissions in that pay period, then yes, you have to go back 90 days, or, like I said, with the amendments, you can just look at my previous work week. So hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah, I think so. And if it doesn't, whoever asked the question, maybe send a quick email or a phone call to Marie, and she can answer you directly. I've got two more, and then we'll call it a day. We currently require an employee to see our company doctor before returning to work if they've been out for 3 or more days. Can I still require this if they use those 3 days as sick leave?
Okay. I have a problem with you requiring that your employees see your doctor before returning to work, unless I want to know the reason. So that already concerns me. You know, obviously, if it's workers' comp, you make them see your own doctor. But a fitness for duty test usually only occurs at the beginning of employment or post-accident. I don't like that you're requiring it for just regular sicknesses. So talk to me about that, because I want to know what your situation is and why you're doing that. But normally it's just a doctor's note. So you want to make sure that that person has been released to return to work, because you don't want to run into any type of interactive process, reasonable accommodation, disability discrimination issues. So no, from what I'm hearing, just straight out of the gate, I don't want you ever having your employees go to your own doctor unless I know the reason why, like if there's some sort of really special circumstances with your organization. But best practice is just ask for a doctor's note after 3 days.
Okay, last question. Let's see. And this is another system question, too. Our system starts the accrual from day 1. However, they do not show up on the check stub until the 90th day. Do they have to show on check stub from day 1 even though they're not available?
Yeah, because remember, under the law, you accrue it from day 1, even though it's not available. But you accrue it from day 1, you earn it after day 30 of actual work, and then you get to take it after the 90th day of employment. So in your situation, you've got people that are supposed to start accruing on day 1, but once they've hit 30 days, specifically 30 days, they've earned the right to take it. So for sure that needs to be on their paycheck stub so that they can say, oh, look at what I've earned. This is what I have. Come into me. And then on day 90 is when they can officially call out sick and get paid. So yeah, I would want the accrual to start being shown right away if you've chosen that method.
Well, that's great. Yeah, this is I can see by the questions and the discussions that I've had with prospects and customers that there's a lot of concerns over this, and a lot of systems are not making it easy to comply. So great information, Marie. So this is going to conclude today's webinar. As I said, the transcripts will be available immediately with a question and answer dialogue available September 1st. Marie's information is there, email, phone numbers. My information is there as well if you've got questions on our system capabilities. I want to say thank you very much for spending the morning with us. We appreciate it. A little bit of a reminder to like us on Facebook and follow us on LinkedIn if you use those social media tools. And now this concludes the webinar. I really appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you.